Hello and welcome to this recording where we're going to explore an example professional discussion for Structured Observation 3 for the Early Years Educator Pathway. I'm joined today by Laura Robshaw and we're going to do a mock professional discussion where I'll take the role of the assessor and Laura will take the role of the student and also give some top tips for Structured Observation 3. Let's make a start. So first off, we'd introduce ourselves. So good afternoon, my name's Gemma. And then insert your provider name and provider number if you have it. And today I'm carrying out professional discussion for Structured Observation 3 with Laura.
Yeah, and here we would recommend that the student said their own name as well.
Lovely. Do I have your permission to record, Laura?
The student could agree if they don't want it recorded. If they feel extra nervous or anxious, then it's not mandatory that they have to have it recorded. So you can just take a written record, but it is important to ask for that permission.
Lovely, thank you. And if you have a moderator with you at the time, if it's applicable, you can also say that straight after this. So I also have a moderator in the room with me now, and I've just observed you contributing to the care routine of snack time, helping to meet the individual needs of children with a small group of 4 and 5-year-olds. Please explain to me using your plan how you think the activity went and if you feel the learning objectives were met.
So here for the student, it'd be best practice to share how their plan linked to the criteria. So thinking about if the aims were met, if it was age stage appropriate, and examples if they use differentiation. For example, I plan to contribute to the care routines, meeting the needs of the children in my group. I linked this to the EYFS, focusing on physical development and personal, social and emotional. The children were engaged in the snack time, and I gave them opportunities to be independent through pouring the water and cutting up the fruit. I also linked this to mathematical development, talking about quantities and differentiating support based on previous observations. The children were meeting the planned objectives, but some did find it quite easy. So next time I would make sure that my next steps offered further challenge.
Brilliant. Thank you, Laura. We're now going through the professional discussion criteria for SO3. We'll start with EYE 1.1, understand the expected patterns of children's development from birth to 5 years and have an understanding of further development from ages 5 to 7. Could you please contextualise this activity you've just done and explain how you might adapt this for younger or older children?
So it's recommended that the student uses the plan to share their expected milestones they planned for, and if the children they were working with were meeting these, exceeding them, or where they needed further support. They could talk about all areas and or focus on one or two specific to the routine, giving that depth and demonstrating understanding within their response. They could talk about biological and environmental factors as well, because these are for the higher marks, but you could map them to 1.4. When talking about how they may adapt for younger and older children, they should link this to development milestones, as well as saying things like preparing snack before, why, what level of development are the children at, and what are their next steps.
Wonderful. Can you share any theorists or theories that you've referred to within your plan?
So again, looking at the marking bands for higher marks, they do need to be looking at the theorists. So encourage them to share that within the plan and share their understanding of them, if those theories were covered, if they were met, if there's any others that they might have wanted to include.
Lovely. Is there anything you'd like to add about the individual rate and pace and how you can support holistic development?
So the students should demonstrate their understanding that all children develop at their own rates and how their activities supported that holistic development.
Are there any areas of learning that you've not covered that you'd like to add anything for? Are you happy that you've covered birth to 5 and ages 5 to 7?
So this gives them an opportunity to cover anything that they haven't. They might want to go on and cover about brain development or further knowledge about ages 5 to 7.
Thank you. We're now going to move on to 1.4, children's learning and development in relation to their stage of development and individual circumstances. So you've touched on this previously. Is there anything else you'd like to add? I can see in your plan that you've included some of the individual needs of the children and how you supported them within the routine. Please can you share how their learning and development may have been affected?
So here the students should share environmental and biological factors contextualised to the children that they've been working with. For example, if a child is living in poverty, how does that affect their development?
Thank you. So, can you share any theory or statutory guidance and how that's used to consider approaches to diversity and inclusion?
So best practice here is for higher marks would be for the students to refer to theory and the early years foundation stage and share examples of how they or the setting ensures inclusive practice in relation to this criteria.
Lovely, thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we move on?
Can move on, thank you.
Lovely. Okay, so S2.12, promote secure attachments with children. Understand the significance of attachment. During the activity, I observed you promoting secure attachments with the children. You shared about meeting their needs and interests, and I can also see that this is in your plan. Please, can you explain to me some of the different transitions the children may go through and how this affects how you would support them?
So the student should share the understanding of planned and unplanned transitions, giving examples of the effects on the children, that one's often missed, and how to support from the list of assessed skills within the tutor guide. They can cover all of them, or they can give deeper examples of some of them to demonstrate knowledge in more depth. For example, if they've supported a child that had a new sibling or that might have been new to the setting, they can share the effects on that child and what they did to support to achieve those higher marks.
Perfect. Are there any other transitions you would like to share? And are you happy you've given us enough around the potential effects?
Yeah, so that just gives the students an extra opportunity to make sure they've shared the effects, as I said, it's often missed, and then talk about make sure that they've covered enough, really. Just make sure you've got enough from them. Thank
Wonderful.
you.
Are you happy to move on? Perfect. Let's look at S4.13. Identify and act upon own responsibilities in relation to health and safety, security, confidentiality of information, safeguarding, and promoting the welfare and safety, security, confidentiality of information, and safeguarding and promoting the welfare of children to include child protection.
So to start with, to explain with examples, key legislation and policies of the setting for each area.
Can you tell me how you would respond to an accident and emergency situation?
Best practice would be for the student to share an example of what they have done or seen here, remembering accidents and emergencies such as fire or lockdown procedures.
So you've included a risk assessment and I observed you implementing this. Can you explain this a bit more and how it's in line with the policies and procedures of the setting?
Best practice would be for the student to share their plan and talk through key areas of the risk assessment linking to the setting policy.
Thank you. It's great to hear how you're using the settings policies to support safety. Could you now tell me about the settings safeguarding policies and with examples, explain how you would act to protect them?
Best practice to share the procedure and the different types of abuse linking to legislation and statutory guidance.
Could you tell me more about the signs and symptoms of different types of abuse?
You should encourage students to talk about different types and the short and long-term effects. They may be grouped with specific examples where needed.
Okay, so what's your role? And if you had a concern, can you tell me what you would do?
The student should share this linking to the settings policy and procedure.
Would you like to add anything else about your role in terms of health and safety, confidentiality, including online, medicines and daily registers?
The student may then talk through other policy and procedures in relation to these areas.
Thank you. Is there anything you would like to show or tell me in relation to this criteria?
So they may use a walk and talk to point out locks on doors, gates, offices, and link this to confidentiality and GDPR. They may show you posters of designated safeguarding officers and policies and show you where first aid boxes linking to accident procedures.
Wonderful. Are you happy to move on?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Let's look at S4.20 and S4.21, plan and carry out care routines. So I've seen you plan and carry out a care routine, and this was linked to health and well-being, making sure the children had access to healthy food. Could you explain to me why health and well-being is important, please?
The best practice would be to talk about all the ways they support this and give examples for babies and children, thinking about food, exercise, outdoors, well-being, sleep.
And is there anything the setting does to promote healthy lifestyles with families? What could you do to promote this?
So here they should give examples of how the setting does this through displays, online forums, newsletters, activities, and share how they might extend their activity to home to demonstrate that understanding.
Thank you. Are you happy with your response and that you've covered enough for babies and children?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Let's look at S4.24, undertake tasks to ensure the prevention and control of infection. So I've observed you undertaking tasks to ensure the prevention and control of infection, but now can you tell me your knowledge of common illnesses and immunisations and the isolation and exclusion periods?
Yeah, so best practice would be to share knowledge of common illnesses. They could give examples of illnesses from their placement setting, linking to their exclusion policies, along with why it's important for the prevention and control of infection.
Is there anything you'd like to add about immunisations?
Here, they should give some examples demonstrating knowledge of the vaccination schedule and explain why we have immunisation schedule in relation to infection control.
Wonderful. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No.
Perfect. Let's now look at S5.9, and this is work collaboratively with colleagues, parents or carers and professionals to meet the needs of babies and young children and enable them to progress. Discuss children's progress and plan next steps, stages in their learning with a key person, colleagues, parents and or carers. So I observed you talking to the room leader at the end of the activity, sharing information about the children's progress and some next steps. I can also see you've planned to share some photos of the activity with the parents via the online system. Can you tell me why this is important?
So the students would here talk about how they work with others using examples from the list in the assessed skills and how they do it at the setting.
Thank you. And now could you tell me about any other agencies or professionals you may need to work with and why?
For higher marks, students need to give a range of agencies and professionals and explain why and when they need to work with them.
Thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to share?
No.
Would you like me to go over any of the criteria or are you happy with the responses you've given?
Happy, thank you.
Thank you, and that's the end of the discussion. Thank you so much, Laura. Hopefully this video will have supported you in professional discussion for Structured Observation 3 for the Early Years Educator Pathway. Please do keep an eye out for our other professional discussion videos. There'll be SO1, 2 for EYE, and there'll also be some assistant teacher videos going live as well soon. Thanks for watching. Thanks, Laura.
Thank you.